Okay, we left off at the top of Amhei Amud Aleph. And so we're going to do today Amhei Amud Aleph. So we left off before last year that Rabbi says that there's an idea called Heter Mitzayv for the Isser, meaning even though there's a Shir Kazais, in order to be Chayiv for the Isser, but if you have Heter, which is joined onto the Kazais, and it's one mixture and you eat it, so even though it's not a full Kazais of Isser, the Heter is Mitzayv to the Isser to make it Asr. The only time according to Rabbi we say that is by Nazir. By Nazir we say that by Nazir, if he soaks his bread into wine, then if he eats the bread, even though the bread doesn't have the wine doesn't have a shear of a revius or kasais, but since the bread, if he ate enough shear of the bread and it's soaked into wine, he's chayv. So we're asking Rabbi, why didn't we learn out the cholot to the kula? One learn that from Nazir. That just like Nazir we say heter matayv to Isser. So too, we should say heter matayv to Isser by all other Isser. So the Gemara answered right at the top of Mehem of the Amud Aleph that the reason why we don't learn out from Nazir the cholot to the kula, says the Gemara, we're going to do inside from the top mishum, because they have a Nazir v'chato shnei ksuvim habayim ka'echad, because we have two times in the Torah that tell us the same thing. There's two times in the Torah tells us the same din of heter matayv to Isser. And from the fact that Torah said it twice, is to teach us that we don't learn out from two psukim that tell us the same din to other dinim. We have an idea called a binyan av, that from one pasuk we don't learn out to the whole Torah. But when Torah says something two times, why did the Torah repeat itself? The reason why the Torah repeats itself is to teach us that which I say this din is not a general din, it's only this specific case. Where do we have two times that Torah teaches us the din of heter matayv to Isser? So Nazir, the first time is by Nazir. Where does Torah say the Nazir is heter matayv to Isser? How the Amram we already said before. The Nazir, we learn from the Mishras, that the Nazir isn't only Asr to drink wine, he's Asr to even eat bread that was soaked into wine. Mishras means soaking bread that was soaked into wine. And even though there's no share of kazayis or revius on the wine, but if he eats a share of bread, he's chayav. That's one time we say in the heter matayv to Isser. And we see it one more time in Torah. Where do we see it? Chatos. We see it by a chatos. Chatos mahi. Where do we see it by a chatos? The Tanya we learn in the Rabbi. So it says in the pasuk we got the carbon chatos kol asher yika b'psara yikdash. Any meat, if you have chulin, if you have meat that touches a carbon chatos, it now has this chulin meat gets the same din as a carbon chatos. Meaning, if the carbon chatos was pasul, so now the meat will also be pasul. If the carbon chatos was holy, so now the meat also becomes holy. What does it mean that the meat touched the carbon chatos? Yachel afilo lo bala doesn't mean that it just touched it by itself and it didn't absorb anything from the meat of carbon chatos. Tamulema bibsara yikdash. The Torah doesn't say kala sheyiga bsara. It says kala sheyiga bibsara. Bibsara means that it's inside the meat, meaning that the meat, in order for the meat to get the din of a carbon chatas, it has to be absorbed something from the other piece of meat. Until he absorbs something from the carbon chatas that can meat. And on this, Torah says yikdosh, meaning if the piece of meat is beileh, if you have a piece of meat which absorbed liquid or anything from a carbon chatas piece of meat, that meat now Liz Kamaya comes like it. What does that mean? Shim Sulahi, if it's going to be pasul, meaning if the carbon chatas was pasul, for example, it was neisar, for example, the carbon chatas were left over time, so then tipasul, then also the meat that touched the carbon chatas would also become neisar and be pasul. V'im ksheirihi, and if the carbon chatas is kosher, then the kohen could eat, the owners of the chatas could eat the piece of meat, kechamor sheba. It has the dinim of the more stringent one, meaning the chatos. Now, the piece of meat we have a din of a chatos. From here we see that het is mitzayv. So now we have a different pasuk to teach us of het and mitzayv to Isser. Not only we see legabe carbon chat, not only we see legabe not only we see legabe nazir, we also see legabe chatos. That we see that if the carbon chatos was pasul, right, it makes the whole piece of meat a kosher piece of meat. It makes also possible, even though there's no shear in the carbon the carbon which is possible. It doesn't have a shear by itself. But if you can eat the kosher piece of meat with it, you're also going to be chayiv. So we see you had to matayv the issa twice in Torah, and therefore, since we see you had to matayv the issa twice in Torah, we cannot learn out from there to any other dinner. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara, "V'Rabbanon according to Rabbanon nami nevin nozev v'chatos shnei ksuv ma'boim ke'echad." According to Rabbanon, we said before, Rabbanon learned out from the word mishtas from word by nazir. Rabbanon learned that from that word to teach us the musar of tam ki'ikir, meaning that the taste of something becomes like the ikir. And the example that Rabbanon gave was that if you have a cup of water and you put inside the water grapes and you soak the grapes inside the water, and now the water gets the taste of grapes, and a nazir drinks the water, the nazir now becomes chai. The nazir now becomes the nazir is it's also for nazir to drink. Why is it also for nazir to drink? It didn't drink any grapes. It's also for nazir to drink because the taste of the grapes is like the grapes itself. Says the Gemara, just like that, the kontra Rabbanon, just like a kontra Rabbi Akiva, we don't learn out the musar of hatem matzayv to issa to the kala terekula because it's two psukim. According to Rabbanon, we shouldn't learn now the idea of tam kika to any other isurim because it's also two psukim. The pasuk of nazir, like we said before, v'chatos, and now we have another pasuk of v'chatos, right? We see the carbon chatos. If you have a kosher meat, touch it, the carbon chatos, and it gets from the taste, the meat also becomes aser. Why? Even though there's no chatos meat inside the mundane meat, the reason why it's aser is because tam ki'ikar. The taste of the chatos went inside the meat, so now it's as if the whole chatos went inside the meat. So we have two psukim that teach us this idea, and once we have two psukim, we should say shnei ksuvim b'am kachad. We should say that since Torah said this idea twice, Torah doesn't want us to learn out to any other dinner. So why, according to Rabbanon, do we learn now the musik of tam ki'ikar to call Torah kol? Answers the Gemara. Amne hanu mitzich tzrichi. The answer is the reason why Torah repeats the idea of tam ki'ikar twice is not because to teach us that we shouldn't learn out from there to any other dinner. On the contrary, the reason why Torah repeats it twice is because both cases are needed. Why are both cases needed? We're going to see it. We're going to see in a second. Both cases are needed. Asking about it. So if according to Rabbanon, both cases are needed. Rabbanon, Rabbi Akiva. So what does Rabbi Akiva hold? Why can't Rabbi Akiva say that both psukim are needed? Answers the Gemara. Why do we need both psukim? If Torah would have just said the Gabe Carbon Chatas, the idea of Hetem Matzayv to Isser and Lo Yigomar Nazimina, and you could tell me that you can't learn out that by Nazir we say Hetem Matzayv to Isser from Carbon Chatas because Cholim Mikachin Legamina, because we learn that we don't learn that Cholim from Kachin. But Allah Lichtev Rachmana Benazir, Torah should just write by Nazir. Torah should write that by Nazir. The idea of Hetem Matzayv to Isser v'teisi Chatas v'tim Minei, and then I can make a Kavochem. If by Carbon Nazir, which is Cholim, we say Hetem Matzayv to Isser, for sure Carbon Chatas, which is holy, I would say the idea of Hetem Matzayv to Isser. Why? Because I can learn everything from Nazir. So the reason why, so in other words, we don't need, according to Rabbi Akiva, we don't need two psukim to teach us this idea, because both psukim are not needed. Only Torah should just say this idea by Nazir, and we'll learn out from Cholim. We'll learn out to Chatas. The fact that Torah said it twice is we have extra pasuk that doesn't have anything that teaches us. The reason why Torah repeated itself is a teacher. We don't learn this out to any other dinner. And so what did Rabbanon say to that? The Rabbanon said that they learn out tam ki'ikar to the whole Torah because we don't say that Torah repeated itself. Why didn't Torah repeat itself? Why don't we say that it's a repetition? It's not teaching us anything. It's just teaching us not to learn out to the whole Torah. Answer the Gemara. Rabbanon will tell you no. Mitzich tzrichi, you need both psukim. Meaning we don't say the psukim are extra, and since the extra, they're only teaching us to not learn out to the whole Torah. No, both psukim are teaching us a specific din, and once both psukim are teaching us a specific din, I can learn this from these dinim out to the whole Torah. What's both psukim teaching us? So mitzich tzrichi. Chatas comes to teach you that which Torah said that if you have a piece of meat and it touches the carbon chatas, it also becomes also it's to teach us the idea lumaid hatem matzayv to iser. It's to teach us the idea of hatem matzayv to iser. V'cholim mikachin legam, And once we know the idea of heter mitzayef iser, it since it only says gabe carbon chatos, we don't learn out from chatos to any other iser. Why? Because chulin from kachin, we don't learn out. We don't learn a din that it says by kachin, by a carbon to any other din, and therefore we only say heter mitzayef iser by carbon chatos. Mishras, now which they repeated itself by Nazir, isn't to teach us like Rabbi Akiva said, heter mitzayef iser. Is to teach us litin tam keike. Is to teach us the idea of tam keike. Umikan from by Nazis. Now that Terry tells you by Nazir that we have the idea of tam keike, we make a atadon. We make a kavachem that if by Nazir we say tam keike. So all of these surim we say tam keike. Like we learned previously in last Amud, the Nazir is much more lenient than all of these surim because Nazir is only for 30 days, and all of these surim are much longer than that, etc., etc. So. But Rabbanan said that these both psukim are needed. There's no extra psukim here, and since there's no extra psukim here, one pasuk is to teach us for heter mitzayef iser, and we only say that by chatas because the pasuk is only speaking by bekachin. By chulin we don't say that, and the other pasuk is teaching us that tam kik, and that we don't have to call to the kul. Ask the Gemara back to Rabbi Akiva. For Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, how can Rabbi Akiva say it's shnei ksum abam ke'echad? It's not shnei ksum abam ke'echad. Why don't we learn that? Why doesn't Rabbi Akiva say that Rabbanan? Rabbi Akiva could say that Chatas is to teach us heter mitzayef iser, and the pasuk of Mishras is to teach us tam keik. Answers Rabbi Akiva Tarvayu heter mitzayef iser. They're both teaching us the heter mitzayef iser, and since they're both teaching us the idea of heter mitzayef iser, since they're both teaching us the same idea of shnei ksum abam ke'echad, and all. If you have two psukim and teach the same idea, we don't learn that from them. So the Gemara basically says that Rabbi Akiva says that they both are teaching us the same din of heter mitzayef iser. According to Rabbanan, there's two different psukim. And since there's two different ideas, one pasuk is to teach us heter mitzayef iser, and that's only by chatas. Therefore, we don't say it to all the other din. And the other pasuk is to teach us the idea of tam keik. Rabbi Akiva argues. Rabbi Akiva says no, both psukim are teaching us heter mitzayef iser, like we learned yesterday in last time. Since both psukim are teaching us heter mitzayef iser, so it's shnei ksum abam ke'echad, we don't learn out from there to anywhere else. Amar le Rav Ashi to Rav Kahana. I was going to ask now on the Rabbi Akiva's shita. The heter mitzayef iser is only by naziris. We're going to ask questions on Rabbi Akiva. Amar le Rav Ashi to Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi told Rav Kahana, Elahad Tanya, how can you say the idea of heter mitzayef iser is only by a nazir? How the Tanya we learn in the Brayso, it says in the pasuk that a nazir becomes aser anything which is done from grapes, including wine, grape pits, until grape peels. Why does the Torah say all different types of things that are made from grapes? The Torah is telling us that all these surim of a nazir are mitzayef to each other, meaning that if a nazir will have a little bit of grape peels and a little bit of wine and a little bit of grapes itself and a little bit of grape pits, and he adds them all together, and all together makes a kazayis, the all mitzayef together to make them a kazayis, and therefore will be chayv. So now the obvious question is, according to Rabbi Akiva, and if according to Rabbi Akiva, regarding a nazir, heter and isra mitzayef together to make mashlim the shir of a kazayis to make him asur. Torah has to tell you that two things which are asur are mitzayef together. If something which is mutter is able to mitzayef to the iser for the shir, for sure something which is asur, for example, grape peels and wine, to mitzayef together to make a shir. Why does Torah have to tell you that it's asur? I answered the Gemara, Amalei, he answered him, iser v'heter v'asachas. It's very simple, very simple. There's two different types of tziruf, two different types of conjoining two things together. Iser v'heter, if you're going to connect, you're going to drink wine, for example, and you're also going to have bread soaked in the wine. It's only mitzayef together if you have it at the same time. If you're gonna have bread, and then you're gonna make a break, and then you're gonna have the wine, you're not chayiv unless you have a revius of wine. You're only chayiv if you have the bread and the wine together. But iser it tells machadish that regarding iser and iser, if you have a half a gazais of grapes, and then afterwards you have half a gazais of wine, half a gazais of grape peels, let's say. So even if you didn't eat them in the same eating together, you are still chayiv. That's the chiddush Torah has to tell you. Even by it's a versa that it's mitzaif together to make it aser, even though it's not the same time. Now the Gemara goes into a whole new subject. It's a new Mishnah. It's a new piece. Going back to the issue of chametz. Says the Mishnah, batzek shebesitke arev. If you have dough which is stuck onto the cracks of a pot, meaning you have the cracks, or you have a pot which has a pot which you make needles inside, which you need dough inside, and inside the cracks of the pot, meaning you have a slit in the pot, you have dough. If you have a kezayis of dough in the same place, meaning the same crack, you have a kezayis of dough, you have to get rid of the dough or the pot before Pesach. But if there's no kezayis in one place, even though if combine all the dough which is stuck in all the cracks of the pot together, it's gonna make a kezayis. So the din is bottle miyute, the dough is bottled to the pot and becomes part of the pot, and therefore you don't have to be mevai the dough from the pot. So too regarding tuma, meaning if you have a pot which has a crack inside, and the crack is being blocked by dough, and you dip the pot inside a mikveh. The question is the dough chaytz? It does not chaytz. So that says the Mishnah, if you're makbid on the dough to take the dough out of, you don't want the dough to be there, you want to take it out of the pot, then chaytz. Then the dough is chaytz, it's a chatzitza. But if you want the dough to be there, if you want the dough to be there, it becomes part of the pot. Once it becomes part of the pot, then if you're turbing the pot, you're turbing the dough, and if the pot becomes tar, the dough becomes tar, and that's not a chatzitza. Says the Gemara, Amar Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Lo shano ela makim she'ein asay b'makim she'ein asay l'chad. That which the Mishnah said that you have to get rid of, if it has a kazayis in one place, you have to get rid of the pot or get rid of the dough, is only if the dough was in a place that the dough was in a place of the pot that's not there to be makabel water. That's not there to it's not part of the pot which is makabel. It's, let's say, at the top of the pot, meaning it's not in the ditch of the pot. But if it's at the ditch of the pot, then you're not chayiv to mevar. Even if it's a kazayis in one place, you don't have to mevar. So the Shmuel is coming between mekel and saying that which the Mishnah say you have to mevar. If there's a kazayis, says only if the kazayis is at the top of the pot, because then since at the top of the pot, it's not really needed for the pot, and therefore you have to get rid of it. But if the kazayis is at the bottom of the pot, this is the crack of the bottom of the pot, and you have a hard dough over there which is blocking the hole, so then you don't have to get rid of it because it became part of the pot. Michlal, from here we see from that which Shmuel said that if it's not at the bottom of the pot, then you have to get rid of it. Michlal, from here we see the pachim nikazayis, that if it's less than the kazayis, that which Shmuel said that only if that's the bottom of that which the Mishnah Shmuel touched the Mishnah. That which the Mishnah is saying if the dough is a kazayis, you have to get rid of it, is only after at the top of the pot. From Shmuel's words, we learn now that if it's less than a kazayis, even at the top of the pot, it's still going to be mutter. Yeah, Shmuel says the Mishnah is not talking about the bottom of the pot. The Mishnah is only talking about the top of the pot. And what does the Mishnah say? If it's a kazayis, then you have to get rid of it. If it's less than a kazayis, then you don't have to get rid of it. So Shmuel is coming to be mekel a very big kula. That the Mishnah said that you only have to get rid of the dough if it's at the top of the pot and it's a kazayis in one place. But if it's at the bottom of the pot, or even at the top of the pot and less than a kazayis, then you don't have to get rid of it. Iki, the Masechta Seifa. Some people say Shmuel wasn't coming to mekel. Shmuel was coming to say a whole different din. Shmuel meant to say like this. He was speaking about the last half of the Mishnah. The Mishnah is saying, V'im lav, we said in the last half of the Mishnah, V'im lav, bottom miyut. We said that if it doesn't have a kazayis, then it's bottom. Amr Shmuel, so Shmuel comes to say, Lo shano, we only said that if it's not a kazayis, that it's bottle. Only if it's in a place at the ditch of the pot, which is there, it's there to be makabel, it's there part of the vessel. But if something's at the top of the pot, chayiv levar, he's chayiv levar, even if it's less than the kazai. Meaning that which the Mishnah said that it's bottle if it's less than the kazai, is only if it's at the bottom of the pot. If it's at the top of the pot, even less than the kazai, so you have to get rid of it, which is completely contradicting to what we learned in the previous saying. So there's an argument much more wanted to say. Michlal, the kazais, if it's a kazais, afilo b'makein, also chazik, if it's a kazais, even if it's at the bottom of the pot, then chayiv levai, you have to get rid of it. So we have two completely contradicting statements that were said in the name of Shmuel. Some people say Shmuel's come to make, saying that if there's at the bottom of the pot, you never have to get rid of it. If there's at the top of the pot, if it's a kazais, you have to get rid of it. If it's less than kazais, then it's okay. Some people say that Shmuel said the complete opposite. If it's at the top of the pot, even less than the kazais, you have to get rid of it. If it's at the bottom of the pot, so if it's less than the kazais, then it's okay. If it's more than the kazais, if it's a kazais, then it's even at the bottom of the pot, you have to get rid of it. Who do you pass like? Says the Gemara. Tanya Kalishna Kama, but Tanya Kalishna Basra. We have a brayso that says like the Lishna Kama. We have a brayso that says like the Lishna Basra. Tanya Kalishna Kama. We have a brayso that says according to the first Lishna that Shmuel's come to Meiko. The brayso says like this. If you have dough at this in the slit of a pot, if it's in a place of the pot that's there to be makabel, meaning it's part of the ditch of the pot, so in a chaytzet, then it's not chaytzet. If you're going to put in a mikveh, it's not chaytzet. Why? Because it became part. It's not a chaytzet. It was because it became part of the pot. And bein over, and you're not over on baniyah because it became part of the pot. But if it's at the top of the pot, let's say that's not part of the ditch of the pot, then chaytzit, then for mikveh it's a chatzitza, ve'ever, and you're over for chametz. Says the price of a medva. When is it part of chatzitza? When are you over for chametz? If dafke, because if it's a kazais, I have a part from the kazais, that's in the kazais. I feel about makim she'enos lechazik, even if it's at the top of the pot, then ain't a chaytzit, it's not a chatzitza. They ain't over, and you're not over. Which this is according, this price is exactly like the first lishna of Shmuel. That one, the Shmuel's coming to Meiko and saying that if you have dough at the top of the pot, if it's less than the kazais, then it's fine. Tanya Lishna Basra, we have a brayso like the second lishna that Shmuel's coming to more machmir to say that the brayso says like this. But if you have dough at the bottom of a pot, if you have dough in the slit of a pot, if it's if it's in a place that's it's supposed to be machazik, it's at the ditch of the pot in a chaytzit, it's not a chatzitza, they ain't over and you're not over. But makom she'enos lechazik, if it's at the top of the pot, then chaytzit's for you chaytzitz and you're also over by your matz. Amonim says the brayso bepachim nekazais. When do we say that you're over if it's less than nekazais? But if it's a kazais, filo b'makom also lechazik, even if you have the dough at the bottom of the pot. Chaytzit, it's chaytzit, over, and you're over for by Matzah, which is like the second Mishnah of Shmuel, that Shmuel says that the Mishnah is coming to be machmir, not to be meiko. I'm going to stop over here at the top of Memheim base. Have a good night.